Here we are on May 11th, and the word tank is on my mind in the NFL, Pat Boyle. The word tank is on my mind. And there is always a big argument when it comes to draft picks and no lottery in the NFL. Do teams tank? And I've always said players don't tank, but organizations can. The players on the New Orleans Saints next year specifically are, I'm sure, going to play hard, but they have a first-year head coach in Kellen Moore who you would think has a little bit of a longer leash when they make the hire like they had to go up there. And, if you lose games, you pick it first overall, so be it. We get the news yesterday that Derek Carr is retiring from the NFL after another injury he had suffered. I believe it was versus the New York Giants at the end of the season there in December. And the Saints, we saw them in the second round take Tyler Shough. And they have Jake Haener, and they have Spencer Rattler. Not exactly a quarterback room that gets you all revved up. They went offensive line. They did not go Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders in their top 10 pick. And that all sets up for this. I don't think the New Orleans Saints were completely blindsided by the news of Derek Carr retiring from the NFL yesterday, Pat. In fact, we kind of had inklings before the draft, right? There were reports coming out that he could miss serious time this year. And yet the Saints still approached the draft and played the board how they wanted to play the board and took an older guy in Tyler Shough in the second round of the NFL draft as his dog jumped up, licking him, going nuts. Now, in a perfect world, do I think the Saints hope that they hit on the second-round pick that is Shough and he has, a Jaden Daniels-type year and they take off and running? Of course, I'm sure that's their first preference. But I think their realization is they needed a quarterback. They probably drafted for need out of that pick in the second round because they knew that Carr was not going to play. They didn't go crazy in free agency at the position. And they took a second-round pick out of need that, hey, if it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But they also hired, and I've said this multiple times, Kellen Moore hired an offensive coordinator by the name of Doug Nussmeier. That is a name that I think is going to continue to be very important this fall when watching the college and the NFL. You see, Doug Nussmeier, as the offensive coordinator, is the father of Garrett Nussmeier, the LSU quarterback, who, as it stands right now on May 11th, is very much in the mix to be the top pick in the NFL draft if he takes the steps and the leaps that many people expect him to take in another year here at LSU. Now, we've seen quarterbacks and that whole rankings. Nobody a year ago was talking about Cam Ward, but I think that hire was strategic. I do believe that hire was made in the mindset of one of the best college quarterbacks coming out in a year that we expect to be taking a quarterback in 2026 will pair nicely with our offensive coordinator, who's his freaking father. The New Orleans Saints, without Derek Carr, are tanking. They're going to play Tyler Shough. If he ends up shocking the world, they'll be happy with that because they used a pick on it, don't get me wrong, but they're not expecting that. This quarterback room is an organizational tank by the New Orleans Saints. They're going to roll out there. They're going to establish a Kellen Moore system, establish a Kellen Moore culture. But their eyes are so fixated on the top of the 2026 draft, they can't even begin to hide it with the breadcrumbs that have followed the New Orleans Saints this year. So I'm going to be on the New Orleans Saints under win total this year. I think they're going to win 2 to 3 games. I think they're going to be that dog turd bad. Wouldn't shock me if they traded Chris Olave in August or at the deadline when that time came as well as they try to reload, rebuild. This is a bottoming out for the New Orleans Saints, who also played the salary cap game far too long, pushing money down the line when they had Drew Brees that they're still kind of paying for that problem. And obviously signing Derek Carr to the money was a problem. But the New Orleans Saints are in tank mode. I believe the Saints, whether it's via trade or whether it's via them getting there themselves, are picking first overall in the 2026 draft.